Hi, this is Rave The Planet. We are hosting another instant rave with Geiger, and we're here in bed at Hotel Berlin. That's you can make of it whatever you want. Because we're in a hotel, there's also room service, and this means by dialing 9 you can order whatever you want.
Okay. Soll ich auf Deutsch bestellen oder English?
Your German is very good, so you can try and
ich
impress
versuche.
our German audience.
Okay, ja, ich versuche. Drücke 9, 9?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
9, 9? Was willst du?
I'm good.
Okay.
You're the guest.
Hallo, einen wunderschönen guten Tag. Ich hätte gern ein alkoholfreies Bier in die Zimmer von Dr. Motte, bitte. Okay, super. Danke, ciao.
Easy.
Okay, I passed the test. Good.
How you've been in Germany for 8 years now, right?
Yeah,
Or
over 8 years. Yeah, I looked at a picture when I first moved here and I almost had no gray hair. Things have changed.
This is what Berlin makes of you. So it must be adventurous. How did it happen?
I was always working part-time jobs and touring like 3 or 4 times a year in Europe. Mm-hmm. And then thought that it was time to take a chance and see if it would work doing it full-time. And at first it didn't work, and then it did. So I think there's always this portrait of coming over and then everything just falls into place, and that definitely didn't happen, but it worked out in the end.
But what was the idea before moving? Like how did you actually make the decision? How did you fall in love with Berlin?
Berlin was the first place I ever played in Europe.
Okay.
And I knew Berlin because that's where I stayed on my first European tours. That's where I was always based out of. And then I had friends and connections already here for friendships and stuff. So that's how I ended up in Berlin.
Do you remember which club it was?
The first club I played was Berghain.
Wow, that's
Berlin.
A good start.
Yeah,
that's a good introduction to the
I was
scene
a lucky
here.
one, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. What's your memories from that night? And of course, I assume you played Berghain, not Panorama.
Correct. I have lots of memories, but to not bore you with those, I just remember getting
those
the time.
memories are never boring.
I just remember getting the time slot from my agent at the time, and I was playing at 5 a.m. And I thought, I'm playing when they're mopping the floors and cleaning the toilets, and then they're getting ready to go home, and I play an hour, and then it stops, and I just hadn't. I had no idea what to.
Ja, bitte. I think that's your.
That's the room service.
That's your beer. Let's see.
Jetzt Zimmerservice.
Hallo.
Wie kriegt das Bier?
Ja.
Darf ich dir aufmachen?
Ja, das ist alkoholfrei?
Ja.
Okay, super. Dankeschön.
Sehr gerne.
Vielen Dank.
Prost.
And yes, so because your sound really fits Berghain, right? I remember you mentioning in one interview that actually you started with being inspired by the really heavy industrial Swedish kind of techno, right? And then you kind of embraced techno moving to something that you called more accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked the range of techno.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, where I'm from, you didn't have these like little micro scenes of, you know, there was no, it was just techno. There wasn't minimal and Detroit and business techno or whatever they call it now. Like, it was just techno, and you were super happy to experience it in any capacity. So there was none of this like clickiness. That was something that only happens when you're in a scene that's really spoiled with techno, where you can pick and choose which hi-hats you want to hear in a track, and which, you know, we were happy to hear a 4/4 kick drum in a club, you know, or not even a club, but any kind of venue where I'm from.
So what's your hometown scene like before you moved here? How was your memories of, and is there some really significant thing about the sound and the other DJs? I mean, that must have changed drastically.
Yeah, not so much. I mean, I was, you know, you had kind of in the Midwest, it was heavily Chicago and Detroit influenced, and but what I remember the most about this scene and all of that is, I mean, to get to a party where I was from, you had to drive like 2 or 3 hours. And I just remember, if you met somebody that was into techno or house music or drum and bass or anything, you were like automatically friends.
Yeah.
And because you were all working for the same, you had to put in a lot of effort to make techno work in your life. It wasn't like you rolled out of bed and then you went down the street and there were 3 techno clubs to choose from. And so those friendships and those bonds that you formed from 3-hour car rides, and it just felt like a real close-knit circle, and I stay in touch with all those people to this day. And but yeah, you were just trying to get your hands on any kind of music that you could. You also had to drive 2 or 3 hours to a record store. This was back when you would have to, if you wanted to mail order, they would call it on the phone and they would play the record over the phone, and you're like, it sounds, I guess, you know, I mean, how can you hear a good techno track over a phone? But that was all you had to work with, you know.
Yeah,
So.
this is super interesting, and we were also chatting off the record before the interview about Berlin being so saturated and full of it, to the point where it's becoming a bubble, very different from the rest of the world, and you can easily get the impression living here that yes, the whole world is listening to techno and it's good, and the quality of music in the clubs is actually, the contemporary scene is quite decent. Yeah, the standards are high,
Super
but then
high.
you travel the world and you see that the rest of the world isn't like that, right?
Yeah, and I always try to remind people that have lived in Berlin to not take this for granted. You know, I mean, these are sometimes scenes like this that seem completely indestructible, or maybe one city council election away from having a public park built in the place of where your favorite club is, or a shopping mall.
Yeah.
Familiar situation, a shopping mall built, and this is something that you just can't take for granted. And I mean, understanding that even though you've got a scene that's so healthy and strong, that you should work for it and you should get involved in not just the music scene, but the politics maybe that actually make sure that the music scene can keep going.
Yeah. So that brings us to the very hot topic right now with artists and basically culture trying to survive the pandemic, and raising the awareness of politicians that we actually need support. What are your thoughts on this? Because it's been going for a year now, and it's not really getting better. I mean, there's light in the tunnel, right? But what do you think? We just moved the parade to next year. How do you think an event like this, or any kind of event, will be possible, and when, and on what kind of terms?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a politician, so it's hard to envision what the future looks like for clubs and when it'll be. I mean, my mother is actually she got her first vaccine yesterday. So it's happening, that people are getting vaccinated, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. But I don't know. I mean, they could go a number of different ways. On one hand, you're going to have people that are so hungry for a party when the bans are lifted and the restrictions are lifted, that they go out. But then on the other hand, you also, I mean, I broke my leg 4 years ago. And for 2 years, every activity I did, I thought about how likely I was to break my leg again. And so I do wonder with the pandemic and stuff like this, if people will experience nightlife differently.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to not even think twice. If somebody next to you needed a sip of water, you just handed them a bottle, and we'll see what it is. But I gave up on predicting what it was. But
and not mentioning just dancing to each other and giving each other hugs, right? Yeah. So yeah, this kind of trauma. Yeah, I guess we can call it trauma after the pandemic. That might force people to kind of teach themselves again and like break the boundaries again, and then to learn how to dance together again.
Yeah,
right?
and it'll happen. I just don't know when it'll happen. And I was excited to hear about the Loveparade coming back, as I understand it. A lot of people had posted. I have a little Discord server that I run, and people were posting links about the news that the Loveparade's coming back. And I only know the Loveparade from my experience. That was, I mean, I took German class in high school, and it was in the textbooks. The pictures of the Loveparade were in the textbooks in my German class in Indiana. And that was some of my earliest experiences, was the recorded mixes from the Loveparade with like 𝘎𝙗𝙗 and 𝗏𝐿 and DJ Rush. And the photos and the videos and stuff, it really made you realize that there was this culture somewhere, maybe not where I'm from so heavily, but there's somewhere out there. There is this culture.
It's pretty amazing that shows you how big of an impact it had and how iconic it became. But of course, all the footage, we're still finding new footage. People keep on sending us some old photos. And the one thing that you notice is that it was a very different era, that people also started partying in a very different way. I know you have an opinion on that, how the party way changed with the cell phones in the hand and with recording. Again, off the record, we were talking a lot before the interview, and you said a very interesting thing, that actually without people with cameras in their hands, you wouldn't know, for example, what happened 20 years ago at the Loveparade, with people with camcorders, right? And you sort of see people with iPhones doing the same on the same mission.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you wonder, okay, is it necessary to constantly have 100 cameras rolling in front of you? But I also remember when I was first getting into the music scene and remembering meeting some of my older heroes, and they were all so cynical. Like, oh, the young kids, they don't appreciate blah blah blah, and that was never true. And I really try now. I just turned 40 last week, and I really try. I don't always succeed, but I really try to not hold myself in a way that's more somehow enlightened to what, like, as a 40-year-old than what I was as the 20-year-old. And with the camera culture, that's the culture that 20-year-olds have always had a smartphone. They've always had a smartphone as part of their, it's kind of wired into them. And yes, I love clubs that have strict no camera policies and stuff like this, but people forget also that sometimes maybe, I mean, for me, if I would have gone to the Loveparade and had the resources, that would have been the one techno party that I would get to experience for a year or something. You'd save all your money and go to that. And I think that it's important to remember that not everybody has access to these memories being created every week. So who am I to tell them, put your camera away? They might have spent their years of savings coming to the event, and so.
Delayed happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you now also playing. Kind of. Is this your first DJ set since your birthday? By any chance?
Yeah, well, I do this thing on Twitch every Friday night, where it's kind of like a little house party on my Twitch channel.
And this is what I also wanted to talk about, because this also brings us to how important the visual communication and the new ways of visual communication is, especially right now in our times, in times of the pandemic. That brings us to the topic of what streams are. How important streams are, and how you yourself, for example, communicate with your fans, and how you discover new fans thanks to this. Because you don't just play DJ sets, you also do tutorials.
Yeah.
Can you please tell us more about these?
Yeah. So I started once the pandemic hit. I thought that this was going to last a few weeks. Stupid me. And I said, hey, Ableton's got a 30-day trial on their website. If you've never produced a day in your life, go download the software, play around with it for a couple of days, and reach out to me, and I want to offer help in teaching people how to produce. And then I thought I'd get 5 emails or something like this, and then they just kept coming in, and I decided to start doing a live stream would be a more practical way to do the production tutorials. And that kind of evolved into Twitch. And then I just started using Twitch as kind of an open source. Once I started teaching these tutorials, I realized that it was actually, we're kind of taught to keep all of our secrets to ourselves, like production and stuff like this. And I started realizing the more I gave away everything I knew, the more interested I was in obtaining new ways of doing things. And
that's a little bit like DJs who don't want to share the track list, right?
Don't get me started.
Please.
But yeah, I mean, well, as a DJ, it's not even my music. It's someone else's. So I'm actually like a walking copyright violation. So I should be very thankful for the music that people are allowing me to play. And I should definitely be willing to share it, because I mean, I can't go online and say, hey, help out artists, help support them, and things are tough for artists, things are tough for promoters, and then refuse to promote them myself when I'm DJing their tracks. So but Twitch has really become kind of this little community where I also have the Discord server that kind of links up with Twitch. And I'll do studio sessions, interviews. I've had Alexander Kowalski on to do like a collaboration where we set up gear on a coffee table and collaborate, talk a bunch of nonsense on the mic.
Alexander is a very good friend.
Yes,
as I understand. And you are about to release something. There's a collab going on, right?
We've over the years we've collaborated multiple times, and then it's just never finished. So we've got 3 tracks that we've started working on together that we never finished, and then we started new ones. So I think this would be the year where we would actually finish and hopefully have an EP coming.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I also remember you saying in one of the interviews that DJing and production for you go hand in hand. That is very important, I assume, for you to think about DJing and the crowd the moment you are producing your own tracks. So you think about the track being played on a big sound system a lot when you produce.
I do, but I think more the notion is that you're DJing, you're consuming the music, and you should be replenishing. You know, it's like if you cut down a tree, you should plant a tree too. And it's the same thing of creating a sustainable loop for the music and the techno culture. So if everybody just DJs, there's no music. Producers can function without DJs. DJs can't function without producers. And so I think it's very important to keep that loop going.
And this brings me to the last question. What are you gonna play for us? And how did do you prepare? And if yes, then can you give us a hint of what to expect?
So during the pandemic, all the live streams I've been doing have been focused on people that are bold enough to still release music. I think there was a lot of apprehension of investing money and releasing music during the pandemic while clubs are closed. And people are still doing it, and they're releasing really great music. So I go through promos on Twitch, review them, and then I make a point to focus on playing all the stuff that's been sent my way. So it'll be a variety of things.
We could talk forever.
Yep.
It's really great talking with you, but we gotta prepare for the stream and share some music with our viewers. I'm really looking forward to this.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Please watch the Instant Rave with Geiger coming up next. Thank you so much.